Hi, everybody. Matt here from Matt Likes Comics, and today I'm at my local comic shop. Fourth try, by the way. It's called Myths, Legends, and Heroes. It's here in Ottawa, Canada. It is a comic-only shop, and it is run by Rob Zedic and has been for years. And we're going to take a quick tour of the store, and then we are going to talk to Rob for a little bit. So here we go. Here is the Hey Kids comics rack, which I'm jealous that he has because I would love to have one of these. These are some wall books at the top. And we've got our rack of, Jesus Christ. What trade paperbacks. Sometimes I lose my mind. I'm sorry. Anyway, here we have mounds, and I mean mounds of back issues to go through. Rob has everything from the 60s up. I think the oldest book I've seen he's had here that I've bought was 1958. As I said, lots everywhere. Take a look on the, here's another shot of wall books. Here's the current stuff. He's got 4 shelves of current. Some of the old big books. Some of the new ones, because I see the new Batman one that came out not too long ago. And here's some of the treasuries from the 70s and 80s. Always good. Some current books and such. He's got a few slabs over here. There's Spider-Man 2099 and so forth. He does have a few toys kicking around. There's some of the new Megos. And we're going to set up to talk to Rob in just a moment. Hi, and we're back. This is Rob Zedic. Rob has been a comic person here in Ottawa for years and years and years. When did you open the store? The first one?
Well, we started originally doing conventions back in 1989. So when we first started. And we did that until 2004. And then my corporate job did a buyout, so I used the money that I got from that buyout to open the shop in 2004. So.
Cool, and that's the shop that used to be in Vanier, if I remember.
On Montreal Road,
yes.
In the East End, yeah.
Yeah, so then you moved to Bank Street to another location first, and then here.
Yeah, 6 years ago, approximately, we moved to an upper floor location. At the time, the building that we were in on Montreal Road, it came under new ownership, and they basically gave us a notice as soon as they purchased the building saying you have 60 days to vacate. We're destroying the building.
Oh, so they didn't even give you a chance.
So it was a bit of a stressful 30-day period where we were trying to scramble to find a new location. So at that time, this was pre-pandemic, so there wasn't a whole lot of downtown space that was available, and the one place that we could find that was kind of in the central downtown area was a second floor location. So we did a 3-year lease on that spot, and then during the pandemic, this spot we're in now opened up. Someone wanted to sublease it, so we took it over, and then they within like maybe a month or two of us being here and the building owner seeing what we put into it, they approached us with an extension for 5 years. So we'll be here for another couple more years yet. So
awesome.
Yep.
So when you were young, what got you into comic books?
It's funny when you did your video and you commented on the spinner rack and how you wish you had one. That was what was in my local convenience store that was with about maybe 5-minute walk from my house. So maybe 10 minutes at most. But so that was my introduction to comics. Anything that showed up on that spinner rack back in the 1970s, because I was born in 69. So I probably would have started looking at books on that rack probably in the mid 70s kind of thing. Maybe a little bit later than that. But seeing those books on that spinner rack was, everything was driven by covers back then, which is, and looking back, Neil Adams was doing a ton of covers for DC at that point.
Yes, I remember.
He was doing interiors, but then he almost kind of became their go-to guy for covers on almost all of their titles. So all the covers were dynamic. They always had great visual appeal. And so it was something that, as a kid, I was just fascinated by. So that was what drew me in.
So you were more of a DC guy when you were younger?
In the beginning, yes. Mainly because I was just enamored with the Batman live action and the animated stuff that was on TV at the time, which, as most people know, other than Marvel had some cartoon stuff in the 60s, but it wasn't really a lot of stuff, and it featured didn't feature the Avengers. It featured the Avengers characters, but more in like solo adventures, like Captain America, Iron Man, that kind of thing. And
Yeah, I
those
remember
guys
those.
didn't really appeal to me. And the animation was kind of almost like screenshots of the comics brought to life with motion, and it was not really that great. So
Yeah, I
it
remember
wasn't
that.
something that appealed to me. I love the Spider-Man cartoon from that period. In the early-ish ones anyway, but I was way more interested in the Batman live action, and then of course the Super Friends stuff that came on TV later. So
Yeah,
which
Super
was,
Friends did it for me.
that was the dominant thing. So Batman was my guy for sure in the beginning, but I love Justice League as well, just because you had a large group of the DC heroes combined together. So yeah.
Okay, so having been in business in the area since 1989, what are your biggest observations of the local comic scene?
It's a pretty large community, and I find a bulk of it actually is outside of the regular shops in town. We did have at one point quite a few shops locally, but we've just had a couple store closures in the last month.
Yeah, it's been a little upsetting.
Yeah, so it's been that's been an adjustment that the whole community's had to kind of deal with and take on. But there are a ton of private collectors that make up a big chunk of the comic collecting community here in Ottawa. So I find that the one nice thing, and we wanted to support that, is that we put on a comics only convention twice a year called the Capital Comic Book Convention, and we really wanted to focus on creating an area for people, if they couldn't find books from their shops locally, that they could source them from somewhere else. Because I've always been of the opinion, if I don't have the book, I'm more than willing to try and find a book for a client. I've gone
Which you've done for me personally on a couple of occasions.
Exactly. So I'll do what I can to me, the customer's always been top priority. I want to make sure that they get the books they're looking for, and if I don't have them, then my best option is to try and discover someone who will. So we created the show with that in mind, and we wanted, it was one of the big frustrations for me. We would do a trek when I first came to Ottawa. 3 of us would go and hit every store in the city, and we would do it usually once a month. And it just got frustrating that you'd go to the stores every month and it was the same books every time. Nothing changed, so there was no new product or anything like that. So it became
if I remember correctly, the late 80s, there was a lot of stores that were dying out, like Collector's Stop, I believe, was at Westgate.
Yeah, it was a very transitional period, because the late 80s was a very big boom period for comics, but then the mid 90s was a very big bust period for comics. So we lost a lot of shops, and a lot of stores really took the hit because the collecting phase kind of grew out.
But you managed to survive that, and you've managed to survive the COVID downturn as well. Is there anything specific that you've done in order to keep going?
I think back in the day, it was because we didn't have a brick and mortar store, so we didn't have to concern ourselves so much with the overhead that's required to keep a place running while your business is suffering, so we were just very lean on our orders, and the pandemic was the same thing. We saw this was coming. We knew it wasn't going to be a short-term thing. I just knew that in my heart of hearts, that this is going to drag on for a while, mainly because it was, they weren't prepared for it, and I knew that with the vaccinations and all that stuff, it was going to take time before they could kind of get it under control. So we trimmed our orders down significantly during that period. And we got lucky too. People were bored. They were at home. They were looking for stuff to do. They couldn't go to movies. They couldn't go to concerts. They couldn't go to sporting events, whatever it was. So they were looking for other ways other than the television and the computer to spend their time. So we benefited from that in the early part of the pandemic.
Right.
With a lot of sales, and people just looking for something to read, or getting back into something that they had kind of neglected for a while. And they realized, oh, you know what? I really like collecting comics or reading comics. Well, let's go see what's available now, and maybe I can get back into something that I haven't done in a while. So,
now I know you have a bit of a web presence. I've seen your website. Are you planning on expanding your business through the website more, or is it more of a
It's
come
a
to the
tricky
store?
question. It's a tricky question. I've had lots of people say, "How come you don't have, you know, an online ordering system through the website?" There's a couple of reasons. One is the cost to set it up. It's quite significant. It's not something you can do very easily. You know, people talk about Shopify and this and that, and, you know, other things. But for us, you know, we did have a heavy eBay presence in the very beginning, in the infancy of eBay, and we sold a lot of books on eBay. But then it got so hard for a multitude of reasons. One was listing fees started going up. Then eBay bought PayPal, so then they were adjusting the PayPal fee structure. And then, but the real killer for us was most of our clientele that wanted to buy books from us were in the States. And the postage rates were insane for us to ship down to the States as compared to what you would ship within Canada.
Yeah.
So I would sell books.
Still a problem, I'd like to point out.
It's never going to go away, unfortunately. As soon as you cross that border, you're immediately adding a huge percentage of cost to your shipping structure. So that's why a lot of people now are finding post offices near the border, and they're having stuff shipped, like postal services near the border, where they'll have the packages shipped there, held for them for a specific amount of time, and then they'll go pay a flat fee and pick up the parcels, because it's easier for them to cross over with it and pay the cheaper American shipping than to have it actually physically shipped to Canada, and vice versa. So all those things combined, you know, at one point I think we were losing about 30% of what our total was just in fees alone. And then sometimes you'd ship the stuff, you'd put it in what I would consider bomb-proof packaging, but somehow those mail carriers would still find a way to screw up your package. And then you've got a damaged book, you're refunding money, or you're having to replace the book, and then do all of the chaos that comes with trying to get compensation back from the postal service for the book as well. So we just kind of stopped doing it flat. We just decided, and to be honest with you, the books we sold the most were the books that were the hot books here. And I'd almost rather sell it to a local client than sell it to somebody in the States. No offense to the people in the States, but you know, if I'm going to make a local collector here happy and find a book for them, I'd rather do that than ship it somewhere. So, you know, but that was just my personal opinion on that.
So you brought up the show that you run.
Yep.
Which I have actually done videos at, and I've attended every one of them, and I think that they're really good.
Yep.
Do you are going to continue them for the foreseeable
Absolutely.
future?
We questioned it for a short period after pandemic. Our numbers dropped off dramatically in terms of attendance after the pandemic. So we were on the fence. But we've been very encouraged by our change of venue and our attendance bumps from the last two shows that the show's going to continue. It's not going anywhere. So
I'm personally glad to hear that.
yeah. And really it was just a frustration thing for us. We had a couple vendors that chose a couple other shows over ours that were shows that happened all the time. And I kind of had the feeling, and I've told vendors this, you know, anyone who knows me knows I always speak my mind, and for bad or for good. And I said to people, I don't understand why you would do a show that you've done monthly when you could do a show that only happens twice a year and is focused on what you're selling. I never understood the mindset behind that. Why are you showing blind loyalty to somebody that you can go to every month of the year, rather than someone that is going to give you an opportunity to see some new clientele and to have everyone who's stepping in through that admission gate is looking for what you're selling, which is comics. So,
and lastly, where do you see the market in the Ottawa area going in the next couple of years?
I think the market in general, just based on my experience in the last 2 years, is that these shows that we're discussing, including the Capital Comic Book Convention, that are niche-driven shows and smaller shows, are kind of the future for this industry, I think. People don't want to pay $40 to go in and shop anymore. And in some cases, 65. You know?
You had a bad experience at the Montreal Comic Con.
Yes,
right?
and you know, it was unfortunate because we hadn't done that show in 6 years, and we really were having high expectations going in because we had not done that show in a while, and we were looking forward to it and hoping it was going to be really good. And it just seemed like the people that came through, they weren't really interested in shopping. They were a lot of people kind of just walking around. There was definitely people in attendance, and it wasn't just our booth. We spoke to every exhibitor that had comics in there because we wanted to find out, obviously, is it us? Is it our product? What's the reason for the downturn and the big drop in numbers compared to shows that we even did 6 years ago? And the general consensus was it was just probably combined the economy with the cost to get in just to do shopping, and I think it just turned enough people away that the numbers weren't good. So I think the future might be the smaller shows like us, which, you know, the Capital Comic Book Convention is a low admission show. It's a low cost for vendor setup as well, and I think from both sides, the vendor and from the fan, I think it's just the smarter alternative with the current economy, the way things are going right now.
Well, I personally thought it was great that you brought in creators.
Yep.
You know, it did add a more. It changed it from just the feel of a big, to me, a big flea market. It actually gave it a bit more of a convention feeling. So,
well, we've always wanted to do that, but every pro I've ever approached that you know, it's tough for Ottawa because it's a one-day show, and if you want anyone from Toronto or Montreal that's a comic creator, you know, it's a lot of travel, whether it's a 2-hour drive or it's a 4 to 5 hour drive for guys from Toronto. And to come up and do all that for one day, it's hard to really encourage guys to come up and set up and do the show. So, you know, one of the things that happened is we had a couple of vendors that weren't available to do the show when we set up at this brand new venue at the RA Center that we have now. And we thought, you know what, let's take a walk around at a couple of larger conventions, talk to some people that we know are from Ottawa local, and see if they're interested in coming in and setting up. So, and the feedback we got from that first show from the vendors was phenomenal. They said that they did more business at our show in one day than they would do at some of the 3-day conventions that they were setting up at. So that was really encouraging. So we tried, you know, to expand that. We're going to try again. We're going to try and get a big guest. The one that's coming up in October, you know, that is our 10th one. So it's kind of an anniversary one. So we kind of want to have someone special come in, but I may have to do some work in terms of working with someone who gets guests on a more regular basis to facilitate somebody for me, because I'm having a struggle trying to get pros that are on, you know, something from Marvel or DC to commit to come in for one day. So we'll see how it goes, but we want to encourage it to keep going.
Rob, I want to thank you very much for your time and allowing me to come in today.
Yep.
I wish you continued success. I've been coming to you for years. You've been fantastic, and if anybody out there is from the Ottawa area and hasn't been here, come on in and check it out. Or if you find yourself in Ottawa, come and check it out.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right. My name is Matt, and I really like comics, and I hope you do too. Take care.